Hello everyone, welcome to my channel. Through this video, you can quickly note down the question and answers of Class 8th History Lesson 2 from Trade to Territory. The company establishes power and the book is Art Past 3 and this is an NCERT book. So let us begin with important points. This chapter is quite long. It has lots of questions and important points and everything has to be done. Certain points like point number 3, 4, 5, they are very important. Point number 8 on Vasco da Gama is very important. Point 11, this is also important. And 7th also, who was the last powerful Mughal ruler, Aurangzeb. This is often asked in exams, even the point on Vasco da Gama. So you can pause the video here and you can note down. So I'm moving ahead. Then these are the other ones. Meaning of matchlock, musket, slavery as well, impeachment, Diwani. These are less important, but anything can be asked by your teacher. And let's move ahead, answer the following questions. What attracted European companies to India and what were its motives? So they came with the purpose of trade to find markets for their goods, and they wanted to buy fine cotton and silk from India as well as spices. And their main motive was they wanted to buy raw material from India at cheap rate and to sell these in European markets at a higher price. So buying from India and selling in European markets at a higher price. Initially, this was the aim. Question number 2. What were the areas of conflict between Bengal Nawabs and the East India Company? So these are the conflicts. The Nawab refused to grant concession to the company and demanded large tributes to company's right to trade. That means the Nawabs asked the East India Company people to give money and gifts for trading, and they were not allowed to mint their own coins, the East India Company, and they stopped it from extending fortifications, मतलब किले बनाने के लिए मना कर दिया, or huge walls or factories, etc. Accused the company of refusing to pay taxes. So the company was refusing to pay taxes and undermining the authority of Nawab. All this was not liked by Bengal Nawabs, and this led to conflict between them as well as East India Company. Then how did the assumption of Diwani benefit the East India Company? Diwani allowed company to use vast revenue resources of Bengal. Outflow of gold and silver from Britain to purchase Indian goods stopped completely. The revenue could now be used to buy raw materials, maintain troops, and build forts and offices at Calcutta. So basically, when British got Diwani rights, they were allowed to collect taxes from that land over which they got Diwani rights. And now, for purchasing Indian goods, they did not have to use gold and silver that came from Britain. They could use those revenue which they collected from India only to buy Indian goods. Explain the system of subsidiary alliance, and this question number 3 is also very important. Explain the system of subsidiary alliance. This was introduced by Lord Wellesley, and under this system, British troops had to be placed in the territory of the Indian ruler, and that too at a fixed pay. The Indian rulers had to pay an amount to the company so that their British troops could be stationed in their territory. That means the Indian rulers were not allowed to maintain their armed forces fully, and they could not employ any European except English in their service. In case they will fail to make the payment, then their territory would be taken away as penalty, and they could not declare any war against any other uh, area or ruler without the permission of British. And company had to be accepted as paramount power, supreme power. The next question, in what way is the administration of company different from that of Indian ruler? This is a long answer. So British divided their territories into three presidencies: Bengal, Bombay, and Madras. This is a very important question. What were the three British presidencies? Then they had an official hierarchy also. Each presidency had a governor general who was the supreme head of the administration. And within presidencies also there were districts, and they were to be controlled by a civil servant. So the civil servant collected revenue as well as maintained law and order. And they also maintained a system of justice. They decided to have two courts in each district. One was called as criminal court or Faujdari Adalat, and the another one was called Diwani Adalat or civil court. All this was presided over by collector, and rule books of Hindus and Muslim laws were compiled. New Supreme Court was established, and a court of appeal called Sadar Nizamat was also established. The next question: describe the changes that occurred in the composition of company's army. How was it different from Mughal army? So Mughal army was composed of cavalry, that means ghursavar, and infantry, that means pedal soldiers. And within the Mughal army, cavalry dominated the army. Infantry was not professionally trained. Whereas company's army was popularly called as sepoy army, and they had a small cavalry because they were fighting wars in Burma, Afghanistan, Egypt, so they could not take horses over there. And they had a large infantry because they wanted to keep pace with changing military requirements, and they even trained their soldiers. Why did British East India Company come to the East? So East India Company was a trading company. It came to the East because they acquired a charter from Queen Elizabeth I, granting it the sole right to trade with the East. That means in eastern part of the globe, this company could trade. And the eastern part of the world was rich in raw material. So East India Company wanted to purchase those raw materials at a cheap price. And eastern part of the globe lacked in technology and had a large population to buy their goods. So they basically came for trade. What were the effects of entering of large number of European trading companies to trade with the East? It led to a huge amount of competition. French, Portuguese, Dutch, British, they all wanted to buy the same goods. Hence this led to competition. And because of this, all of them started fighting with each other. They used to sink each other's ships. They used to block trade routes. And all this led to conflicts. East India Company started developing forts, and they were not ready to pay duties to the local rulers, and this led to conflicts with local rulers as well. But this was good for Indian people who were selling goods to European companies, as due to the competition they could increase the price initially. Then question 9, why did British fight wars with Mysore? So in 1785, Tipu Sultan had stopped export of various goods through the ports of his kingdom, and he disallowed local merchants from trading with company. He established friendship with the French in India, and with their help he modernized his army. This was not liked by British, so they had fought 4 wars with Mysore, but they won in the last battle of Seringapatam. Question 9, answer of question 9 should include only these 3 points, but in case it comes as a 5 marker or something else is asked, so in which war Tipu Sultan lost and how many wars were fought, so I have given it as a note and I've marked it as 4th and 5th point. Different annexation policies by British, you can pause the video here and note it down. Subsidiary alliance, paramountcy and doctrine of lapse. Doctrine of lapse, the last one is very important because mostly questions are asked on this. Then this is the last question, difference between Battle of Plassey and Battle of Buxar. Less commonly asked question. And remember, this is very important. The victory in Battle of Plassey marked the beginning of British rule in India. And after this Battle of Buxar, company acquired Diwani of Bengal. So this 3rd point is itself important as a 1 marker. So that's it, everyone. This is the end of the question and answers.